Hello and welcome to West Hill Golf Club, where today we're out testing TaylorMade's new driver offering for 2018, and I've got both of them in my hands here. So I have the M3 and the M4. The M3 replaces the previous generation M1 and the M4 replaces the M2. Now, we saw both of the first generation M drivers back in 2016. And the M1 was designed to offer maximum adjustability with this sort of two-tone composite crown, and the M2 was designed to look exactly the same, again with the graphite composite crown, but a little bit less adjustability, but more affordable price point. And so from those perspectives, these two drivers haven't changed much from the previous two generations. However, there is a big and important new technology, and I think that's why TaylorMade have decided to change the names to M3 and M4. Now, for over 100 years, people playing golf have been used to using woods with bulge and roll technology. Basically, the face of the wood being slightly curved, which means that if you hit the ball out of the toe, there should be a gearing effect to bring it back into the middle of the fairway, again out of the heel, slings the ball back towards the centre line. What they've discovered through the testing they've done with golfers is that there's a strike pattern that players have. People tend to hit the ball either high and in the toe or low and in the heel. And that's why TaylorMade have introduced a new piece of technology called twist face. And I have a representation of that in my hands here. Obviously this face is a lot bigger, but it shows you how different the design of this face is to anything else you would have seen before. The principle is actually very simple and makes a lot of sense. So in the toe section, it should offer more loft and be slightly more open. And in the heel section, it should offer less loft and be more closed at impact. And that's because golfers of all abilities were finding that if they hit the ball from the low and in the heel, it was flying high, spinning more, finishing in the right hand rough. It was a weak shot, not very useful. And if you're hitting the shots consistently high and in the toe, they were flatter flight, less spin, less loft, and finishing less, basically a hook. So what they tried to do with this technology is redesign the face to counteract those effects. Now, one thing I will say is that once you set this new driver down behind the ball, it is hard to see twist face. The guys that have worked on the cosmetics of the golf club have, I guess, tried to hide it as much as they can so it doesn't put anybody off. I think it's just about visible when it's down behind the ball, but it's not going to put anybody off. And as you can see from the golf club, it does have quite a different look to the previous generation. I really love the two-tone crown look, but this version is silver. It's slightly more sophisticated. It's a little bit more premium looking. I think this driver looks absolutely fantastic, both behind the ball and on the shelf. But the big question is, how did it perform? Well, I've been out testing both of these drivers using a GC quad launch monitor. We had both of them set to 10.5 degrees. The M3 was put into a completely neutral setup position just so that we could see the basic differences between the two drivers. I had the same Aldila Rogue X-Flex shaft in both, and we used TaylorMade TP5 X golf ball. So really, we wanted to be able to produce a comparison between these two drivers to see what those differences are. And as you can see from the launch monitor, the results are incredibly consistent. So the M4 was 1 mile an hour ball speed quicker. It was launching a little bit less, but spinning a fraction more. I mean, those spin numbers are very, very similar, at just under 2,000 RPM. That's very, very consistent between the two. The peak heights are similar, and of course, when you put all of those launch monitor data together, the overall distances are going to be similar, but they were absolutely fantastic. So I was carrying both of these drivers 290 yards, the M4 a fraction further at 291. Now, anyone who's seen any of the driver videos that I've put together in the past will know that's really, really good performance for me. In fact, I hit one shot with the M3 that carried 296 yards and actually went a total distance of just, I think, 1 yard under 320, which was really, really impressive. We also tried to test out the twist face technology. So again, using the GC quad, we put the stickers on the face to find out exactly what the strike pattern was. And I hit a series of shots with the M3 and the previous generation M1, high and out of the toe, to see how both drivers performed. Unfortunately, the results, they weren't really conclusive enough to be able to say one way or the other in this video. Slight variation. I'm a 5 handicapper. I'm not the best player in the world. I'm certainly not a robot. I'm not a professional. And there were slight variations in swing path or swing speed that I felt was sort of slightly skewing the results. So I wouldn't be able to say one way or another that the twist face makes a huge difference. But what I would say is the ball flights from both the M3 and the M4 were very, very consistent. I was missing the centre line most of the time, just a fraction left, which overall I'd say is a really sort of nicely contained shot pattern. That's something that you can certainly work with. And that's why I think ultimately I would go with the M3. Obviously the launch monitor data between M3 and M4 is basically the same for me anyway. One thing I would do is I would move this driver into the fade bias position, because that ability just to straighten out that little bit of a tendency to miss left would make a difference. It would make a difference on the launch monitor, but it would make a massive difference out on the golf course. If you've ever seen any of my videos in the past, you'll know I've gone for a Titleist 917 driver just because of that ability to put it into a fade bias position. It means that I can swing really aggressively out on the golf course, not worrying about missing it left. And I'd be able to do that with this M3 driver, and I think I'd be able to get great performance as a result. So the two new drivers from TaylorMade, they certainly have fantastic shelf appeal. They have had a significant upgrade from the previous generation. You'll notice it as soon as you set the driver down behind the ball. They have the same sort of shape as the previous generation, but they look, for me, for my money, a little bit more premium. And with the technology that's been built in, you might just be able to hit a few more fairways. One thing you certainly are going to notice is that these two drivers are very, very powerful indeed. All I can say is go out, give them a test yourself, and you'll see what I mean.